One day, a sudden tear appeared in the sky, forming a blazing red cross-shaped rift. Its edges crackled with energy, radiating an ominous glow as if the heavens themselves had been split apart. On that fateful day, everything began to change. From the ominous rift in the sky, a gate tore open, flooding the world with chaos. Swarms of monstrous insect-like creatures poured out, their wings beating furiously as they descended upon the earth, and with their arrival, destruction followed. From beyond the rift emerged a world that would later be known as the Demon Realm. From its depths, ferocious and merciless monsters poured into the human world, their presence bringing chaos and ruin wherever they went. In humanity's darkest hour, certain individuals awakened with extraordinary abilities. These chosen ones, known as hunters, rose to stand against the monstrous threat, wielding powers that defied ordinary limits. These hunters were individuals who had awakened to the power of mana, granting them extraordinary abilities that set them apart from ordinary humans. With the emergence of these empowered individuals, humanity finally found the strength to fight back, launching a counterattack against the monstrous invaders. As the years went by, the scars of war slowly began to fade. Cities rose once more from the rubble, rebuilt under the warm glow of a new dawn. Though countless challenges still lingered, life gradually found its rhythm again. At the very least, some people were able to reclaim and enjoy a semblance of normalcy. However, peace was fragile. The threat was never truly gone, as monstrous creatures continued to emerge, forcing humanity to remain vigilant and ready for battle. To combat the relentless waves of monsters pouring into the world, warriors fought fiercely, determined to hold the line and protect humanity from annihilation. With a fierce cry, the warrior swung his weapon, striking at the monstrous abomination before him, its gaping maw lined with jagged fangs and filled with unblinking eyes. Every blow was a desperate attempt to keep the horrors at bay. Despite their bravery, there was a critical problem. The number of hunters who naturally awakened their powers was far too few to match the overwhelming tide of monsters. Thus, in response to this dire shortage, something new was created, a force born out of necessity to stand against the relentless threat. It was none other than artificial life, beings created by human hands, their glowing eyes and formidable presence signaling a new weapon in the fight for survival. This creation was known as the Chimera Hunter, a powerful artificial warrior, forged to annihilate monsters with unmatched precision and devastating force. The experiments utilized grim materials, corpses of death row inmates and animals, serving as the foundation for creating these artificial warriors. They also incorporated rare minerals harvested from deep within the gates, their otherworldly energy serving as a vital component in the creation process. Finally, monster cells were added to the mix, infusing the creations with the power and ferocity of the very beasts they were designed to hunt. In a desperate bid for survival, humanity pushed the limits of science and morality, fusing the remains of beasts and humans within ominous laboratories to forge weapons capable of turning the tide. These advancements made it possible to mass-produce chimera hunters, ensuring a steady army of artificial warriors to confront the monstrous threat. This alliance was hailed as the perfect fusion of the scientific and hunter communities, combining intellect and combat prowess to create humanity's ultimate line of defense. This collaboration significantly reduced hunter mortality rates and saved countless lives, marking a turning point in humanity's battle for survival. Decades later, under the quiet of night, an illegal chimera research lab operated in secrecy. Inside, a weary worker sighed, muttering to himself that he only had one last subject to check before he could finally head home. In the B-18 high-grade chimera storage, two researchers moved cautiously down the dimly lit corridor. One of them stopped, shining his flashlight on a particular cell. "Huh? This one, number 17. His arm looks a little rotten," he remarked with concern. One researcher shouted urgently, Hey, don't go near him." The other, unfazed, replied calmly, "It's fine. His brain is damaged. He won't move without orders." A monstrous creature was chained to the ground, its body twisted and unnatural. Its right arm was grotesquely deformed, oozing with strange growths. One of the researchers shined a light on it and said, "Look, his right arm is completely messed up." Could this be a side effect of the experiment? One of the researchers scoffed and said, "Why are you so scared of a guy who can't even see properly?" But as he spoke, the creature's golden, slit-pupiled eye suddenly snapped open. One of the researchers stammered, "Let's just roughly pass it. At this rate, he'll be discarded anyway." The other gave a casual nod and replied, All right, man. The chained creature sat silently in the dimly lit cell, its piercing eyes locked on the two researchers. Neither spoke, the heavy atmosphere pressing down on them as the sound of chains subtly echoed in the air. Inside the lab director's office, a cold and detached voice declared, "Number 17 is now useless," sealing the creature's fate without a hint of remorse. One of the scientists reported, "His body is too badly damaged. If it were any other one, it would have died already." The lab director, seated behind his desk, responded coldly. "How much longer does it have?" one of the scientists replied. "A month at most." The other nodded in agreement, adding, "I agree." The man smirked slightly and said, "Really? Then, deploy him in this gate blockade operation. Have him guard the rear when the hunters retreat." Under the dim, cold light, the chained beast lay battered and bloodied. Directors commanded researchers to do not input a return command. In the scorching skies of the Demon Realm's Rocky Mountain region, the ground cracked beneath a lone figure's presence, shockwaves radiating outward as golden streaks tore through the air around them. From the crimson skies above, a massive golden-scaled beast dove with its jaws stretched wide, rows of razor-sharp teeth glinting menacingly. Its roar tore through the air as it descended upon the lone, horned figure below, casting a monstrous shadow over its prey. The number 17's powerful clawed legs tensed as it pushed off the ground, golden energy swirling around its body. Blood from a fresh wound trailed down its back, yet its movements carried an unyielding ferocity. The beast comes flying, its blood-stained body twisting with raw power, but as golden energy beams crisscrossed around it. Number 17 swings his claw and teared that flying creature in the mid-sky. Suddenly, the ground around the number 17 shattered violently, spiderweb cracks spreading from its position as fiery projectiles rained down from above. Explosions erupted all around, filling the battlefield with smoke, debris, and the scent of scorched earth. Yet the number 17 at the center remained unshaken, its gaze locked forward. From the cracked, blood-stained ground, a massive creature erupted, its gaping maw lined with rows of razor-sharp teeth. Vines slick with venom lashed out from its mouth, flailing wildly as it let out a deafening roar. The force of its emergence sent shockwaves through the battlefield, but the lone, white-haired number 17 stood firm, facing the monstrous threat head-on. The ground quaked under the colossal number 17's weight as its massive, clawed limbs struck the earth, shattering stone and leaving deep cracks in their wake. Its glowing, predatory eyes locked onto its prey, radiating a terrifying intent as an ominous energy began to surge through the battlefield. With a sudden burst of energy, number 17 launched itself high into the sky, leaving a radiant trail of power in its wake. Below, the massive plant-like beast recoiled in surprise, its tendrils writhing as it realized it's too late. Number 17 twisted midair, and with his massive claws it sliced that plant-like beast, slicing arcs of red meat hurtling toward it. Explosions erupted around the battlefield, debris and shockwaves tearing through the ground. Number 17's jaws opened wide, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth as arcs of crackling blue lightning danced around them. At its center, a brilliant sphere of concentrated energy began to form, radiating an ominous glow as raw power gathered for a devastating attack. A blinding surge of blue lightning erupted from the number 17's maw, tearing through the air like a spear of pure destruction. The beam shot downward with unstoppable force, its crackling energy scorching everything in its path as it closed in on its target. The lightning beam struck its target head-on, engulfing the creature in a torrent of blinding blue energy. Sparks and arcs crackled violently around its body as it let out a pained, guttural cry, the force of the attack tearing through the air with devastating intensity. The searing lightning engulfed the foe completely, its body convulsing violently under the overwhelming power. Sparks danced across its frame as it let out a deafening scream of agony, the sound echoing through the battlefield while the blinding light threatened to tear it apart from the inside out. The battlefield lay in ruin, streaks of lightning still crackling in the air as the dust settled. The group stared at the lone figure ahead, their gazes filled with awe. "Amazing," one of them breathed, unable to hide their astonishment. "To annihilate so many monsters with a single attack," another remarked, his voice tinged with respect. "As expected of an S-class Chimera hunter." The man glanced at the swirling, fiery portal in the distance, his expression tense. "By the way, there's no sign of the gate closing. It's the third day," he said gravely. But then, another guy, in a calmer tone, told him to, "Don't worry too much," saying, "No matter how many monsters pour out, As long as we have that S-class chimera, we can hold out indefinitely, he declared confidently. But as he spoke, a towering mass of monsters surged upward like a dark tidal wave, racing toward number 17, standing defiantly at the peak. That man gripped his weapon tightly, the steel gleaming under the ominous crimson sky. "We just have to," he muttered, bracing himself for what was to come. "We just have to," he said, before swinging his blade in a swift, deadly arc. Green blood splattered as the monster was cleaved apart. "Deal with the stragglers that get through." The gate pulsed ominously, its swirling darkness framed by a blazing crimson glow. An unsettling hum filled the air, as if the portal itself was alive and waiting to unleash what lay beyond. A voice rang out urgently. "Red gate disappearance signal confirmed." The tension in the air thickened as the man in the long coat tightened his grip on his weapon, his eyes locked forward. "It's here," he said, his tone calm yet edged with anticipation, as the last remnants of slain monsters littered the ground around them. "All right, retreat. Everyone, exit through the gate." The order rang out with urgency as boots pounded against the ground, their wearers sprinting toward safety before the portal closed. A clenched fist smashed forward with explosive force, the impact shattering the surface it struck as shockwaves rippled outward. Number 17 continued fighting. A massive red and blue creature attacked fiercely, its claws striking down at number 17 on the ground. Two hunters sprinted away from the scene. One of them, a red-haired woman, called out, "Wait! Aren't we taking that number 17? The dark-haired man beside her replied without slowing down. "Leave him. They said not to retrieve him." The red-haired woman questioned in disbelief. "What? Isn't that expensive?" Meanwhile, number 17, with piercing yellow eyes, struggled under the crushing grip of the massive red and blue claw. "They said its lifespan was over anyway," the man's detached voice replied. As they sprinted toward the gate, the red-haired woman's voice wavered with guilt. "I feel kind of bad. If it weren't for him, the damage would have been immense this time." The dark-haired man shot her a sidelong glance and replied bluntly, "Why worry unnecessarily? You know those guys are practically inorganic." Number 17's single, blazing eye glowed with an intense golden light, its gaze unwavering. Black-haired man told the girl that they just follow orders and their master. The words echoed, cold and detached, as if stripping away any notion of individuality or will. A powerful grip tightened around number 17's limb, blood dripping from the point of contact. The force behind the hold radiated sheer determination, as if refusing to let the creature escape no matter the cost. With a brutal strike of number 17, the creature's limb was severed, spraying white fluid through the air. The bloodied figure, hair whipping wildly, stood amidst the chaos, their form battered yet unyielding. In the lingering silence of the clash, one truth echoed in number 17's mind. They're monsters. The mission was clear: secure the hunter's rear at all costs. On the battlefield, number 17 clashed violently with its enemy, severed limbs flying through the air and splattering the ground. Despite the chaos, it stood its ground, holding the line so the others could press forward without fear of an attack from behind. A monstrous maw, lined with jagged teeth and dripping with saliva, lunged forward with a guttural roar. Its glowing yellow eyes burned with hunger and rage, but before it could strike, a sudden surge of crackling blue energy descended, cutting through the darkness like a blade. A blinding surge of blue lightning erupted from number 17's grasp, its power crackling through the air with devastating force. Number 17's golden eye gleamed fiercely beneath its horned crown, locked onto its target with predatory focus as the energy sphere in its hand radiated overwhelming destruction. A colossal beam of blue and white energy erupted forward, splitting the ground apart as chunks of debris were blasted into the air. The sheer force of the attack illuminated the surroundings, its destructive power tearing through everything in its path with unstoppable momentum. The ground was still cracking from the devastating blast, debris scattering across the battlefield as arcs of blue lightning flickered in the air. Amid the chaos, a calm but firm voice echoed in number 17's mind, cutting through the tension with a single question. "Do you understand?" Bathed in swirling green miasma, number 17 staggered forward, its body torn and bleeding from fresh wounds. Blood dripped from its jagged teeth as its claws stretched outward, still ready to strike despite its battered state. Its labored breaths mixed with the toxic haze, creating a scene of relentless, desperate ferocity. The words appeared in number 17's mind, framed by a flat, steady heartbeat line. "There is nothing else." The ominous message pulsed in number 17's mind. When the mission is over, it means you don't need to return. The comms crackled with a cold, detached voice. Number 17 said, "Retreat route, secured, severed." Bloodied claw of number 17 dropped heavily onto the ground, its sharp black talons curling lifelessly. Number 17 had completed his mission. The cracked, barren ground was splattered with thick green fluid, its stench hanging heavy in the air. At the center of the mess lay battered, bloodied number 17 barely clinging to life, while the remains of a severed claw rested beside him, with massive, slime-covered number 17 loomed in the light, its jagged teeth bared as thick green fluid dripped from its body. In his mind, a voice instructed him that return is not permitted. On this day, the final mission report for Chimera Hunter number 17, who met its demise, was recorded as follows: number of hunter deaths, 0. The battlefield was littered with the corpses of countless monsters, their twisted forms sprawled in heaps across the cracked earth. In the foreground, the massive segmented body of a slain creature lay still, green blood pooling beneath it. It recalled that it had once been a complete human, and that it was kidnapped at the age of 9. Starting from that memory, a panorama of number 17's life began to flash before its eyes. Unfortunately, number 17's damaged brain couldn't fully comprehend the meaning behind those scenes. It calmly watched its past life unfold. 79 years ago, at the District 13 orphanage, a man stood outside holding a baby. Looking down at the child, he read softly, "The child's name is." 70 years ago, a boy sat silently on a chair, his head lowered. A man stood before him, scolding, "You hit a friend with a stone because they teased you a bit? How many times has this happened now?" The boy remained wordless. Snow fell quietly outside as the doors slammed shut with a loud bang. "We can't keep you anymore." With those words echoing in his mind, the boy stepped out into the falling snow, arms crossed against the cold, leaving the orphanage behind. The boy collapsed face first into the snow, his breath visible in the cold air. A looming shadow stretched over him, hinting at someone, or something, approaching. One of the men scoffed, remarking on how, in the slums, children could be found rolling around in the snow. Another voice followed, cold and transactional, asking, "How much is all this?" Strapped to a cold metal table, the boy lay motionless, his limbs bound by restraints and electrodes fixed to his skin. His mouth was gagged, preventing any cry for help. A gloved hand loomed over him, holding a syringe filled with a mysterious purple liquid. From somewhere in the room, a voice questioned with chilling detachment, "Is it a new experimental subject?" In a dimly lit laboratory, several scientists stood around the restrained boy, discussing his identity with clinical detachment. "What number?" one asked. "It's number 17, another replied without hesitation. A quiet observation followed, laced with grim certainty. Spells must have been cast to ensure there was no chance of escape. One of the masked scientists gave a curt order. "Okay, record it." Another, holding a clipboard, noted in a clinical tone, "Number 17, S+ class silkworm larva cell injection." Number 17's restrained hand twitched violently, the black tattoo stark against his pale skin. One of the observers spoke with clinical anticipation. "All right, let's watch now. What kind of reaction will appear?" One of the researchers stared at the readings in disbelief. "What? No side effects?" Another observed the restrained boy in the chair and added, "A special ability has appeared, but his human form and ego are maintained." One of the researchers examined the data carefully and remarked, "It seems to have a unique constitution." Another, with a cold and clinical tone, ordered, "Keep implanting various things until there's a reaction." The group of scientists huddled closely together under the harsh white light, their lab coats forming a wall of secrecy. Whatever they were observing seemed to demand their full attention, the air in the dimly lit lab thick with tension. Then, 64 years ago, the scene shifts to a dimly lit space where a figure, partially visible and wearing tattered clothing, moves hurriedly, their posture tense as if fleeing from something. In the midst of a crumbling room, number 17 stood firm, energy radiating in a brilliant blue sphere between his hands. The ground beneath him cracked from the force, while behind him, two figures struggled, one coughing on the floor and another cowering in fear. In front of him, a beast with golden fur and a spiked crest loomed, the tension between them crackling in the air. A massive, horned, insect-like creature with a yellow and black armored body charged forward at full speed. Its jagged jaws were wide open in a feral roar, sharp fangs bared, and its bladed wings cut through the air as it hurtled toward its target with deadly intent. The blurred cityscape behind it made its speed and ferocity even more terrifying. The monstrous hornet lunged forward with blinding speed, but suddenly a brilliant sphere of blue energy comes towards it. The intense light illuminated its snarling jaws and menacing stinger, moments before the inevitable impact. 7. Result of implanting over 500 types of monster cells for 15 years. His meticulous handwriting filled the clipboard, illuminated under the cold glow of the laboratory lights. 54 years ago, deep within a secret laboratory, relentless experiments took place. For 15 years, over 500 types of monster cells were implanted into a single subject, number 17. The result was extraordinary, a being with power beyond measure, possessing at least an S-rank hunter classification, his true strength practically incalculable. Now, bound in heavy chains and drenched in blood, number 17 sat restrained in a chair, his monstrous aura radiating in the dim light. The scientist, unable to hide his manic pride, declared him the lab's greatest success. But in the present, that same scientist watched number 17 falter mid-step. With a sly grin, he taunted, "Oh, number 17, why did you stop? Did your memory get confused?" Moments later, his voice rose in exhilaration. "Yes, your side effects have finally begun." Number 17 froze, his eyes narrowing as he muttered to himself in confusion. Side effects? 20 years ago, a gloved hand held out a piece of raw meat, the gesture deliberate and coaxing. "All right, number 17, good boy," the voice called out softly, as if speaking to something dangerous that needed careful handling. The young woman flinched back in shock as a large, bird-like creature with sharp features and blazing orange eyes lunged toward her. "Whoa!" she exclaimed, instinctively stepping away from the sudden, aggressive movement. The woman crouched a short distance away, smiling in satisfaction. "See? I told you it would eat," she said, watching the creature tear into its meal. This monster was number 17. Nearby, a mother turned away in disgust. "It's gross," a man gently covered his young son's eyes. "Don't look at things like that," he said firmly, steering the child away from the unsettling scene. 3 days ago, a blinding surge of energy erupted in the air, splitting the sky with crackling light. Number 17's golden eyes widened, reflecting the storm of power as arcs of electricity danced violently around it. Massive, grotesque number 17 let out a final, haunting roar as its body began to dissolve into fragments of light. Its fading voice echoed through the air, repeating in a broken mechanical tone, "All missions, complete." As the sun dipped low on the horizon, its golden rays illuminated a vast, jagged chasm that tore through the barren land. The ground was littered with bones and remnants of the fallen, a silent testament to the devastation that had unfolded here. A haunting wind whispered through the canyon, carrying with it the echoes of battles long past. Amid the desolate expanse, a single weathered bone lay half buried in the dust. The bone shifted suddenly, scraping against the dry earth as if stirred by an unseen force. In an instant, with a blinding pillar of light, that bone erupted from the ground, tearing through the darkness and piercing the sky. The sheer force of its emergence sent shockwaves rippling across the barren land, as if heralding the return of something powerful and long forgotten. A massive spinal column, brimming with crackling energy, shot up from the earth, each segment pulsing with unnatural vitality. The narration echoed ominously. This was no ordinary relic. It carried within it the combined power of 527 different types of monster cells, a grotesque fusion of countless creatures' strengths. Its skeletal frame continued to assemble, ribs locking into place around a dark, pulsating core. The voice of the narration rang clear. This abomination was no mere monster, but Chimera Hunter number 17, a weapon forged from the cells of hundreds of deadly beasts, reborn for one purpose alone: the hunt. From its spine and ribs, sinewy cords of muscle began weaving into place, twisting and binding together with unnatural speed. The once lifeless bones pulsed with grotesque vitality, each fiber brimming with monstrous power as the creature's body took shape. A blinding explosion erupted, flooding the darkness with searing light. Flames burst outward in every direction, tearing through the air with a deafening roar, as if the world itself was splitting apart. Then bare feet touched down softly on the cracked ground, the air around them still hazy with lingering smoke from the explosion. He looked down at his hands in disbelief, his voice trembling. "What is this?" he muttered, the unfamiliar warmth of flesh replacing what he had once been. A haze of confusion filled his mind as he took in his transformed body. "Am I human again now?" he asked himself, the words barely more than a whisper. Bathed in the warm glow of the rising sun, he stood at the center of the barren land, his shadow stretching long across the cracked earth. The massive stone arch framed the light behind him, as if the world itself was announcing his return. Revival.